What's up, sit-downers? Welcome to the Saturday Sit-Down if you're brand new, where I bring you a book review every Saturday on a novel which everybody's already said is really good, so I don't have to take any risks and read something that's a waste of my time. Shaved for you this week, and I think I'm going to get a haircut after. So this week I read Joyce Dubliners, a short story collection of his. And I'll tell you about that. But first, if you haven't yet, checked out my other project I'm working on. You can find it at authorsunleashed.com. And there I believe right now we have 5 stories set up. And basically all you do is you read what people have written so far on the story and you submit your idea for the next part of the story. And then once we get enough submissions, we go into the voting phase. And you can vote, other people can vote on what they think is the best submission. Once it's voted on, staple that bad boy onto the story, and we move on to the next part of the story. And after we do that 7 times, we have a complete story. We throw it in the library, and everybody can read and say, wow, that person was a great author. I'm a bad writer. A lot of people that help me out with it are bad writers. Who cares? It's just fun. None of us are claiming to be James Joyce. Stepping up to the next level, thought I'd start something a little new here where maybe I could introduce you to a few people on Twitter you'd be interested in checking out. I have a really big helper, Emma, and she's been awesome for me. She's one of my first viewers on these videos. Check her out. Her username should be right down at the corner right now. Take a look at her tweets. If you like her, start following her. Say, hey, I found you out through Dean. Also, take a look at Kaylin April, who just started following me this week and tweeted me, hello, I love your videos, okay, bye. Which was the first person to ever do that, and I'm really thankful. She's fun, she's a good follower, check her out too. So anyways, back to Dubliners. Short story collection, as I already said, published in 1914 by James Joyce, who many said kept himself sane through his writing. Joyce was, he was Irish, from Dublin. He moved out in his early 20s and never went back, although he always made Ireland his go-to place in his writing. He never made a setting outside of the Dublin area, and that's what he tried to go through here with Dubliners. Every story is about a different person. It doesn't follow one main character, but it does sort of follow the growth from childhood through adulthood and the difficulties we face along the way. One of the biggest themes of this collection is definitely getting into ruts, getting paralyzed in the situations that we're already in, and not being able to change even if we really want to. If you take a look at one of the short stories around the middle of the book called Eveline, I believe is how it's pronounced, you have a story here about a woman who doesn't really like her surroundings. Her father seems to be getting more abusive, people she's loved have passed away, and she finds somebody who wants to marry her and take her far away. She thinks it's a great idea, but when the time comes down to leave, right at the last second, she stops and she doesn't go. In the encounter, which is the story of a couple boys skipping school, you know, it's obvious they're looking for a sense of adventure, a change from the monotony of the school day over and over and over and over. I think we all remember that. You have other stories, such as in Eyre Bay, where a young boy is infatuated with his next door neighbor because he sees something new, he sees a change there. And suddenly he becomes very bored with school, becomes sick of his uncle, he becomes sick of everything that he's used to. And he promises his next door neighbor that he's going to go to this bazaar that is supposed to sort of bring in the wonders of the Middle East and all that change and enchantment that would come from there. So he goes, and when he gets there, he realizes it's not that different from what he's already living. Is it depressing? Yeah, it is depressing. I can't say that I had a lot of fun reading this book. There's even a little anecdote in The Dead, which is not even arguably the most famous short story out of this collection, where Gabriel talks to his wife and a few other members at a party about a horse that his uncle owned that worked at a mill where the horse walked around in a circle over and over again. And even when that horse was freed and allowed to go walk around on his own, he only knew how to walk in circles. And that's what Joyce is trying to get to here in these short stories, is the human nature to settle down and get stuck in these patterns of habit. And why can't we break those habits? I mean, we all have them. Every Saturday, I sit down here and tell you guys about a story. Every night before I go to bed, I take a shower. Every morning, I wake up, I check for messages on my computer, I go downstairs, I brush my teeth, I put my clothes on, and I go to work. It's always the same. But another point, almost like an answer to this problem, is what Joyce called the epiphany. And he tried to include this also in most of his stories, which is a point of awakening in the human mind where suddenly we realize our true selves and the true nature of things. And this is evident at the end of Eyre Bay, as I already said, when the child realizes that things won't really change, or in Two Gallants, where the one character sees that his life isn't really changing, and it clicks to him, hey, maybe I should settle down with a wife and stop trying to rob people. Also, the biggest epiphany at all in the short story collection, at the end of The Dead, Gabriel looks out of his window and sees that the snow has covered what he believes to be all of Ireland, and has covered the living, the dead, the trees, the homes, everything. And everything has become numbed. And there's sort of a hope in that epiphany, that realization of what we are and what we're doing and what we're becoming. In that when we hit that realization, we can change for the better and embrace life, even in its routines and its ruts. It's tough for me to recommend this book to the mass majority of people because a lot of people like really good stories. I like really good stories. I loved Treasure Island. And in this collection, what Joyce was going for really didn't have a whole lot to do with a storyline or a plot. He was trying to make a point on the human condition. Its importance in literature is huge. I mean, you're talking about a time period prior to the publication of this book where things like specific names and locations and things of that nature were never used in stories. And Joyce comes out with a collection, and take it, he was only in his 20s when he wrote these, where specific names of streets are used in Dublin that everybody knows. He was really on the brink of the avant-garde for the time period. And today we take all this stuff for granted. The thing is, this whole week, I never really wanted to sit down and keep reading. I forced myself because I knew it was important. And for that sake, I can say, if you don't want to read James Joyce, that's okay. But to better yourself as a reader, to better yourself as a historian, at least take the time to look up a little bit about Joyce, a little bit about what his books meant. And as long as you can appreciate that, I don't think you have anything to worry about. What do you guys think? Have you read the book before? Do you want to read it? Do you love it? Did you think it was horrible? And what should I read for next week? Well, actually, I already know what I'm going to read next week. It's Fahrenheit 451, but that was suggested by one of my viewers. So if you have a suggestion, let me know. Just remember that it has to be a quote-unquote classic, and try and keep it under 300 pages so I can have somewhat of a life outside of reading books. James Joyce, The Dubliners, Dean Gornitis, The Saturday Sit Down. Can't wait to see you next week.